All right. Well, hello, Northwest. It is just about noon, and it's time for Sea of Monsters. I hope you're doing well. You know, I always try to start with announcements. As you may have gotten the message, hopefully you have, tomorrow we're going to start the fourth quarter. And the important thing is don't panic. Think of this as the first day of school with a new teacher, and maybe the technology works. Maybe the technology doesn't work. Maybe the new teacher doesn't know where the bathroom is. Maybe she doesn't know how to pronounce names. But it's the first day of school. So we're just going to kind of go with the flow. And it's going to get better and better. But the important thing is that all your teachers should have a Canvas page right now. And you'll go there and there'll be assignments. And off we go. Students that were in middle school, if you were in health in third quarter, you will be transitioning to PE fourth quarter. And yes, that will be PE online. Mr. Roberts and Ms. Maynard and Ms. Pacifico have been working very hard on creating and curating a curriculum for you. Obviously, if you were in PE first quarter, you're going to be going to health. And if you're in high school, there's usually a transition as well from Mr. Roberts to Ms. Pacifico. So the important thing is just to be flexible and everything is going to be okay. So don't panic. So we'll do our two little rituals that we start with. I've decided they're rituals. First, a little hand sanitizer on the hand, but remember, washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds is the way to go. And unfortunately, I've already opened the Coke, so I'm going to make the noise. Take a sip. So, yesterday in Sea of Monsters, we're almost done with chapter 9. We encountered the arch villain, or Percy's main nemesis at this point, Luke. And Luke, we find out, is recruiting monsters and other half-bloods who feel like they've been treated poorly by the gods. And let's be honest, all the half-bloods have been treated poorly by the gods. Most of them have never even been claimed. And he's putting his own army together, and they're all on the ship. And Luke had decided that since Percy wasn't going to join him, he was going to have our heroes fed to the Draken. As I walked down the corridor with Aureus's javelin poking me in the back, I thought about what Luke had said, that the Bear twins together were a match for Tyson's strength, but maybe separately. We exited the corridor amidships and walked across an open deck lined with lifeboats. I knew the ship well enough to realize that this would be our last look at sunlight. Once we got to the other side, we'd take the elevator down into the hold, and that would be it. I looked at Tyson and said, "Now." Thank the gods he understood. He turned and smacked Aureus 30 feet backwards into the swimming pool, right in the middle of the zombie tourist family. "Ah!" the kids yelled in unison. "We are not having a blast in the pool." One of the security guards drew his nightstick, but Annabeth knocked the wind out of him with a well-placed kick. The other guard ran for the nearest alarm box. "Stop him!" Annabeth yelled, but it was too late. Just before I banged him on the head with the deck chair, he hit the alarm. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. "Lifeboat!" I yelled. We ran for the nearest one. By the time we got the cover off, monsters and more security men were swarming the decks, pushing aside tourists and waiters with trays of tropical drinks. A guy in Greek armor drew his sword and charged, but slipped in a puddle of pina colada. Lastrygonian archers assembled on the deck above us, notching arrows in their enormous bows. "How do you launch this thing?" screamed Annabeth. A hellhound leaped at me, but Tyson slammed it aside with a fire extinguisher. "Get in!" I yelled. I uncapped Riptide and slashed the first volley of arrows out of the sky. Any second we would be overwhelmed. The lifeboat was hanging over the side of the ship, high above the waters. Annabeth and Tyson were having no luck with the release pulley. I climbed in beside them. "Hold on!" I yelled, and I cut the ropes. A shower of arrows whistled over our heads as we free fell towards the ocean. Chapter 9. We hitch a ride with dead Confederates. "Thermos!" I screamed as we hurtled towards the water. "What?" Annabeth must have thought I'd lost my mind. She was holding onto the boat straps for dear life, her hair flying straight up like a torch. but Tyson understood. He managed to open my duffel bag and take out Hermes' magical thermos without losing his grip on the boat. Arrows and javelins whistled past us. I grabbed the thermos and hoped I was doing the right thing. Hang on! I am hanging on, Annabeth yelled. Tighter! I hooked my feet under the boat's inflatable bench, and as Tyson grabbed Annabeth and me by the backs of our shirt, I gave the thermos cap a quarter turn. Instantly, a white sheet of wind jetted out of the thermos and propelled us sideways, turning our downward plummet into a 45-degree crash landing. The wind seemed to laugh as if shot from the thermos, like it was glad to be free. As we hit the ocean, we jumped once, twice, skipping like a stone. Then we were whizzing along like a speedboat, salt spray in our faces and nothing but sea ahead. I heard a wail of outrage from the ship behind us, but we were already out of weapon range. The Princess Andromeda faded to the size of a white toy boat in the distance, and then it was gone. As we raced over the sea, Annabeth and I tried to send an iris message to Chiron. We figured it was important we let somebody know what Luke was doing, and we didn't know who else to trust. The wind from the thermos stirred up a nice sea spray that made a rainbow in the sunlight, perfect for an iris message, but our connection was still poor. When Annabeth threw a gold drachma into the mist and prayed for the rainbow god to show it us Chiron, his face appeared all right. There was some kind of weird strobe light flashing in the background and rock music blaring like he was in a dance club. We told him about sneaking away from camp, and Luke and the Princess Andromeda and the golden box for Kronos' remains, but between the noise on his end and the rushing wind and water, I'm not sure how much he heard. Percy, Chiron yelled. You have to watch out for... His voice was drowned out by loud shouting behind him, a bunch of voices whooping it up like Comanche warriors. What? I yelled. Curse my relatives, Chiron ducked as a plate flew over his head and shattered somewhere out of sight. Annabeth, you shouldn't have let Percy leave camp. But if you do get the fleece, yeah, baby, somebody behind Chiron yelled. Woohoo! The music got cranked up, subwoofer so loud it made our boat vibrate. Miami, Chiron was yelling. I'll try to keep watch. Our misty screen smashed apart like someone on the other side had thrown a bottle at it, and Chiron was gone. An hour later, we spotted land, a long stretch of beach lined with high-rise hotels. The water became crowded with fishing boats and tankers. A Coast Guard cruiser passed on our starboard side, then turned like it wanted a second look. I guess it isn't every day they see a yellow lifeboat with no engine going 100 knots an hour manned by 3 kids. That's Virginia Beach, Annabeth said as we approached the shoreline. Oh my gods, how did the Princess Andromeda travel so far overnight? That's like 530 nautical miles, I said. She stared at me. How did you know that? Uh, I'm not sure. Annabeth thought for a moment. Percy, what's our position? 36 degrees, 44 minutes north, 76 degrees, 2 minutes west. Whoa! How did I know that? Because of your dad, Annabeth guessed. When you're at sea, you have perfect bearings. That is so cool. I wasn't so sure about that. I didn't want to be a human GPS unit. But before I could say anything, Tyson tapped my shoulder. Other boat is coming. I looked back. The Coast Guard vessel was definitely on our tail now. Its lights were flashing and it was gaining speed. We can't let them catch us, I said. They'll ask too many questions. Keep going into Chesapeake Bay, Annabeth said. I didn't ask what she meant or how she knew the area so well. I risked loosening the thermos cap a little more, and a fresh burst of wind sent us rocketing across the northern tip of Virginia Beach into Chesapeake Bay. The Coast Guard boat fell farther and farther behind. We didn't slow down until the shores of the bay narrowed on either side, and I realized we'd entered the mouth of a river. I could feel the change from salt water to fresh water. Suddenly I was tired and frazzled, like I was coming down off a sugar high. I didn't know where I was anymore, or which way to steer the boat. It was a good thing Annabeth was directing me. There, she said, past the sandbar. We veered into a swampy area choked with marsh grass. I beached the lifeboat at the foot of a giant cypress. Vine-colored trees loomed above us. Insects chirrled in the woods. The air was muggy and hot, and steam curled off the river. Basically, it wasn't Manhattan. I didn't like it. Come on, Annabeth said. It's just down the bank. What is? I asked. Just follow. She grabbed a duffel bag. And we better cover the boat. We don't want to draw attention. After burying the lifeboat with branches, Tyson and I followed Annabeth along the shore, our feet sinking in red mud. A snake slithered past my shoe and disappeared into the grass. Not a good place, Tyson said. He swatted the mosquitoes that were forming a buffet line on his arm. After another few minutes, Annabeth said, Here. All I saw was a patch of brambles. Then Annabeth moved aside a woven circle of branches like a door, and I realized I was looking into a camouflage shelter. The inside was big enough for three, even with Tyson being the third. The walls were woven from plant material, like a Native American hut, but they looked pretty waterproof. Stacked in the corner was everything you could want for a campout: sleeping bags, blankets, an ice chest, and a kerosene lamp. There were demigod provisions too: bronze javelin tips, a quiver full of bows, an extra sword, and a box of ambrosia. The place smelled musty, like it had been vacant for a long time. A half-blood hideout. I looked at Annabeth in awe. You made this place? Thalia and I, she said quietly. And Luke. That shouldn't have bothered me. I mean, I knew Thalia and Luke had taken care of Annabeth when she was little. I knew the three of them had been runaways together, hiding from monsters, surviving on their own before Grover found them and tried to get them to Half-Blood Hill. But whenever Annabeth talked about the time she spent with him, I kind of felt, I don't know, uncomfortable. No, that's not the word. The word was jealous. So, I said, you don't think Luke will look for us here? She shook her head. We made a dozen safe houses like this. I doubt Luke even remembers where they are, or cares. She threw herself down on her blankets and started going through her duffel bag. Her body language made it pretty clear she didn't want to talk. Tyson, would you mind scouting around outside, like look for a wilderness convenience store or something? Convenience store? Yeah, for snacks, powdered donuts or something. Just don't go too far. Powdered donuts, Tyson said earnestly. I will look for powdered donuts in the wilderness. He headed outside and started calling, Here, donuts! Once he was gone, I sat down across from Annabeth. Hey, I'm sorry, you know. Seeing Luke, it's not your fault. She unsheathed her knife and started cleaning her blade with a rag. He let us go too easily. I hoped I'd been imagining it, but Annabeth nodded. I was thinking the same thing. When we overheard him say about a gamble and they'll take the bait, I think he was talking about us. The fleece is the bait? Or Grover? She studied the edge of her knife. I don't know, Percy. Maybe he wants the fleece for himself. Maybe he's hoping we'll do the hard work and then he can steal it from us. I just can't believe he would poison the tree. What did he mean? I asked. That Thalia would have been on his side. He's wrong. You don't sound sure. Annabeth glared at me, and I started to wish I hadn't asked her about this while she was holding a knife. Percy, you know who you remind me of most? Thalia. You guys are so much alike it's scary. I mean, either you would have been best friends or you would have strangled each other. Let's go with best friends. Thalia got angry with her dad sometimes. So do you. Would you turn against Olympus because of that? I stared at the quiver of arrows in the corner. No. Okay then, neither would she. Luke's wrong. Annabeth stuck her knife blade in the dirt. I wanted to ask her about the prophecy Luke had mentioned and what it had to do with my 16th birthday, but I figured she wouldn't tell me. Chiron had made it pretty clear that I wasn't allowed to hear it until the gods decided otherwise. So what did Luke mean about cyclopses? I asked. He said, you of all people. I know what he said. He was talking about the real reason Thalia died. I waited, not sure what to say. Annabeth drew a shaky breath. You can never trust a Cyclops, Percy. 6 years ago, on the night Grover was leading us to Half-Blood Hill. She was interrupted when the door of the hut creaked open. Tyson crawled in. Powdered donuts, he said proudly, holding up the pastry box. Annabeth stared at me. Where did you get that? We're in the middle of the wilderness. There's nothing around for 50 feet, Tyson said. Monster Donut Shop, just over the hill. And that's where we're going to end today because there's no better place to end than with a donut. Tune in tomorrow where we're going to learn more about the Monster Donut Shop and Percy Jackson. Remember that tomorrow is going to be the first day of the fourth quarter and we're all in this together. Check your teacher's canvas and don't panic. All right, peace out. Wash your hands. Exercise.